Out with it.
So I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 5. You know, originally, I really didn't want to review Metal Gear Solid 5. Thing is that I was just a little bit scared that my own biases would get in the way of me doing a proper review. I mean, sure, I have reviewed games near and dear to my anus before, but those were all ye olden games, so I could look at it with a sense of retrospect. And with MGS5, I couldn't really do that. So not only would I have to overcome my own love for the series as a whole, but I'd also have to put aside that whole hype thing that I had going on.
But then, on a fresh September morrow, I said to myself,
God damn, son, fuck this shit and quit being such a pussy. So that's what I did. I figured that if I was gonna play a game that's actually new for once, I might as well get with the times and review it anyway. So yeah.
Here we go!
Now, the story of Metal Gear Solid 5,
The Phantom of Pain,
is all about a bunch of sequel baggage trying hopelessly to pull itself together and almost succeeding, sort of. And at the center of all this baggage sits a man called Big Boss. Big Boss is the leader of a group called Diamond Dogs who set off to do some war fighting. And not just any war fighting, but a war fighting between recurring characters, retconning, and most frightening of all,
heavy adult themes.
This series just went from being about cyber ninjas and big robots to being about cyber ninjas and big robots and child soldiers and sacrifice and standing on the edge. And, well, it sort of does it gracefully, maybe. Mostly because the story is pretty fucking sparse to begin with. I mean, while it's definitely there and certainly a big part of the experience overall, there aren't really that many super long cutscenes minus a few exceptions here and there. Now, for a lot of people, this is a good thing. The gameplay is pretty fucking strong, so the fact that the story and cinematics are kind enough to step aside is good. But as an MGS fan, this really is the only thing I don't necessarily find myself agreeing with. Especially because of how the mission-based structure just doesn't lend itself all that well for a well-paced story in general. Despite that though, there's still plenty, and I mean plenty, of talking. You see, this game is all about the tapes. Each mission, you get a bunch of tapes featuring info from everything what happened during Snake's coma to Miller's foray into running a burger stand. And instead of stopping you dead in your tracks, you can listen to these whenever you want. Now, while I don't dislike the tapes approach, I do find myself preferring the codec calls. I mean, while making certain exposition optional might be a good thing for some, it also makes the story completely incomprehensible if skipped. And perhaps more importantly, there's always something there to fuck everything up. Whether it be cause telling you how to use shit right in the middle of a tape, or your fucking truck being all like... It can be pretty fucking annoying. This shit worked in Peace Walker to an extent, mostly because it was just cause going,
Boss, felt in my dick and drank my nipples.
But now
He's practically on the verge of reading you his memoirs at any given point in the game, totally cancelling out whatever audio you may have willingly be subjecting yourself to in order to derive some sick semblance of pleasure from it. Yeah, not exactly great. Just like all of the other MGS games though, this is, of course, a stealth action game. Only now, it is set in an open world. It pretty much takes the set pieces style of design from all of the previous games what I talked about many times before and dots quite a handful of these in various maps. And, as always, with a, in this case, quite literal sandbox, come missions. These can be selected from a menu or triggered by certain locations and can range from anything to simply infiltrating a building to find some documents to taking out an entire fleet of fucking tanks. And at the foot of all of this stands Mother Base, which is the base thingy of Snake's new militia. From here, you can manage your troops, develop new weapons, and do all of the other sketchy shit that any private army would do. So what it all boils down to is that you manage your shit through Mother Base and in menus and acquire said shit out in the field by simply digging around and doing missions. Essentially turning this game into a stealth army simulator. Now, because of the open world, all of the set pieces are approachable from many different angles. And because of that, the binoculars play a very big role in this. Basically, you need to get to higher ground to be able to look around with the binos in order to tag soldiers so you can keep track of them and get some radio intel, and then plan the best course of action based on what info you have, or just go in guns blazing like a complete fucking idiot. Something that really caught my eye as I kept playing though was how incredibly well designed these maps actually are. Like, part of me kinda expected the mountains to just be there to make shit look nice. But nothing in these maps is just for scenic bullshit reasons, as everything seems to have a stealthy purpose one way or another. And that's pretty great. Shit just feels a lot more natural overall, as it's all about actual self-planned infiltration instead of fairly linear set pieces. So there is a lot of player agency when it comes to the sneaking around. The only downside to all of this is that it can get a little bit repetitive at times. Thing is that traversing the same two maps over and over, encountering the same enemy outposts again and again can get a little bit old. Quite often, I found myself skipping these outposts after the first 10 hours or so, just driving on through, not giving a single shit. And while there's certainly a certain charm to doing that, especially with Rebel Yell blasting out of your speakers, I really would have liked it if you could take the staff from Mother Base and deploy them at the enemy outposts once you've taken care of everyone. It could have been one hell of a mechanic to have your troops be at war with theirs, defending bases and being able to check in yourself every once in a while, or just letting it all happen while you do you. But now, all you get is a notification telling you that you've cleared the outpost, but there isn't really anything you can do with it other than just getting away with stealing all of their shit. I don't know, maybe I'm just overthinking this, but I think it could have made the open world aspect a lot more dynamic and interesting. Apart from that though, the game does have an insane amount of content to keep it from ever getting boring. I mean, because of the Mother Base stuff, you can constantly keep developing new items, weapons, and vehicles. So, while it is a bit meh to have to keep revisiting the same few places over and over, I did always have something new to try out every time. Whether if it was a new suit or some insane fucking death machine of doom, I was never not entertained. Or, well, apart from the few instances where the game fucked up. Things like that one part where a boss fight glitched out on me and dudes kept chasing me even though they never were supposed to go that far. Or like that one time where my car fucking despawned on me right in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. It became pretty obvious to me that the game does have some very minor jank going on at times. Shit even completely crashed on me at one point. I show the footage, but it even went as far as to completely corrupt the fucking file. And also, I read plenty of stories online from other people having issues with this as well, especially with all the online bullshit, which I completely ignored for this very reason. I heard about it shortly before playing and said fuck it and pulled the Ethernet cable from my system. So while I can't really comment on the microtransactions because fuck Konami, at least you can take solace in the fact that the single player components are fully playable without any kind of connection or additional payment required.
Almost ran out of breath.
So at least that's nice, I guess. Something that actually is nice though is how streamlined the whole mother-based thing is now. I mean, they did almost this exact same system before in Metal Gear Solid Piss Walker, and while it certainly was quite alright for what it was, it also required a lot of micromanagement, having to assign all of your troops to do certain tasks. But now, all of this is automated. You're still able to do it yourself whenever you want by opening the menu, but if you don't want to spend hours in an isolated menu telling dudes what to do, you don't have to do that at all. And that's pretty fucking amazing, as all I really ever did was just check in between missions, give the okay for some development projects, and go back to doing missions again. And to make shit even better, sort of, they even made Mother Base fully explorable, instead of it being nothing more than just another fancy looking thing you can see in the background of a menu. I say sort of because Mother Base does feel like a little bit of a letdown to me. I mean, you can walk around and look at people, but there isn't really much to do besides just that. Sure, it's cool to see it develop and actually change based on your own choices, but that's also really all that it is. Besides a few plot-based events, it's just not really interactable at all once you get there, which is really the only aspect of the game I'm genuinely disappointed with. Especially because of how fucking cool the damn thing actually looks. I do kinda love this game though, if that wasn't obvious enough. Because in my eyes, literally everything Kojima touches turns to gold. Blue, blue, blue. Well, I joke about it, but it actually kinda does. But I'm also not stupid though, as I am fully aware of how absolutely incomprehensible the story has become, and also that maybe, just maybe, Hideo Kojima may have his head just a wee bit too far up his own ass. Again, I don't care, but if going on a trip to Hideo's anal cavity sounds like a bad time to you, then this game probably isn't for you, despite how raving some of the totally not written under strict Konami supervision reviews may have been. I mean, this is very much a game about Hideo Kojima jacking off in your face for a good 40 hours, either because or despite the fact that Konami may very well have been against him doing that. But as far as spiteful anger wanks go, I will say that it is very likely that Hideo had a pretty good fucking time while doing it. It is, from a gameplay standpoint at least, by far the best game in the series. The sandbox-like structure should allow for a lot more player agency than what was shown in all of the previous games, and in any case, it does definitely feel like an MGS game to me. Such a thing is obviously gonna mean different things to different people. Some might be looking for the hour-long codec calls, and others might want the music to be all like boom 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 boom. And MGS5 doesn't really do any of that. But it does have all of the fancy bloopy bleepy cyberpunk stuff, the weird sense of humor, and the off-topic conversations taking place in seemingly inappropriate situations. I mean, fucking Skullface is doing theatrical gestures on top of a bloody robot, for fuck's sake. So yeah, this is pretty much what I wanted the game to be. Whether if that's still how I'll look at it 5 years from now, I honestly don't know. Retrospect is kind of a nice thing to have, and there's also a lot of shit left that I still want to talk about. But I did enjoy it thoroughly. And in any case, I'll definitely be looking forward to the next time that Hideo Kojima rises from his own butthole to once again rub one out in our collective faces.
And there I was, dumbfounded at the fact that I thought that it would be over. But Kojima had trolled us once again, as this game essentially pulls an inverted Peace Walker. What I mean is that in Peace Walker, most of the story happened before the credits, but the actual game didn't really start until after. But in MGS5, most of the game happens pre-credits, and most of the story happens after. All of those cool-looking shots from the trailers, all of the dramatic, evil-looking horror shit tying this all together with the other games, don't happen until after the credits. Once the ending had rolled by, I started getting cutscenes after every mission or so. It's weird, and I'm not yet sure as to why it happened, but I kinda like it. Add to that the true ending and all the tapes you received afterwards, and I'd sincerely argue that the story told here makes for a much better conclusion than MGS4 ever could have. It ends up giving much more depth to all of the game's recurring villains, and it sets the entire overarching plot in such a different light that the entire clusterfuck that it in all actuality is almost starts making sense again. Kind of. It is, however, quite the shame that the last couple of missions were cut from the game. It left a mildly bitter taste in my mouth that I still managed to get rid of after I looked a little deeper into the game's current ending. But, nevertheless, fuck Konami, brother. Da 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 da. Yeah.